بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Before Jummah, I usually take questions from the community. So if anybody has any questions, I like giving preference to the audience that's here. Otherwise, I will answer the questions. I get questions all the time. So I have plenty that I'm willing to answer and that I have with me. But if anybody has any questions they'd like me to answer immediately, I'm more than willing to answer them now. No? So the question I got last week was about gelatin. And I think this is a very important question and something that many of us struggle with here in the US and maybe in other places as well. So basically with gelatin, what happens is that there's a breakdown. They take the skin of the animal, and what happens is after they take the skin of the animal, they run it through a chemical process, and the collagen, which is what the skin is made of, it's broken down and it's made into what we call gelatin, and that's the process that happens. So you have three major opinions concerning how to deal with this gelatin. Number one is the easiest. If the gelatin comes from a plant source, or it comes from a labiha source, right? If it comes from a halal source, then the gelatin is also halal. The second opinion is that there is a chemical process that happens. And because there's a chemical process that happens and there's a change, the hukum also changes. An example of this, if we take the stool of a dog, like if when a dog goes to the bathroom, the stool, the feces is what? Is najis, yes? Like if I burn that stool and it becomes ash, what is the hukum on the ash? It's not najis anymore, it's tahir. Why? Because it's burnt. And the hukum on ash is different than the hukum on the feces. The same thing applies, for example, if I have alcohol. If I have alcohol and I open the bottle and I leave it for a week, what happens? So not too many chemists or biologists here. It turns into vinegar. It turns into vinegar. And this vinegar now is, sometimes we see it in the stores, it's sold as either red wine vinegar or white wine vinegar, right? This is something that is very common and something that we find. And the hukum on vinegar is what? It's halal. It's halal, it's tahir, there's no difference of opinion. But the source, whether it be the feces, or whether it be the alcohol, or whether it even be the skin. The Prophet ﷺ, he saw a sheep being dragged, right? He saw a sheep being dragged, and he said, what are you guys doing with the sheep? And they said, it died, right? This animal, the sheep, it died itself. Nobody slaughtered it. So he says, أَلَا أَنْتَفَعْتُمْ بِإِهَابِهَا, يعني, why don't you benefit from the skin? Why don't you benefit from the skin? So they said, إِنَّهَا مَيِّت, right? It's dead. It's a dead animal, it's carrion. We can't benefit from it. So he said to them that treat the skin. Treat the skin. Because when you treat the skin, this is tathir for the skin. Yani we can't eat the meat, but you can still use the skin. The skin is now tahir. So you have multiple examples of things changing state. And it can go from something that is initially haram, and it can become something that is halal. So what scholars have said, as long as you can benefit from the animal. So the first position we said, if it was plant or halal, then the gelatin is also halal. The second opinion is that if it comes from an animal that is permissible to eat. So if it comes from cows, for example, even if the cow is not slaughtered, they said because the cow aslan, just like the case of the sheep during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they said that because the chemical process happens and the collagen is changed into gelatin, because of this chemical change and the asl that this animal is permissible to consume, it is now permissible to eat that type of gelatin. This is the second opinion. The third opinion, and this is more of a Lahiri opinion than any of the other madhahib have to deal with, because you will have some of the Shafi'is who will allow this, right? And the Jumhur, they allow the first. And then some of the Shawafi, they'll allow the second. And the third category, this would probably be the Lahiris who would allow this, is that they say any chemical change, regardless of the source, it becomes halal to consume. So they're saying whether the source be pig or otherwise. So even in pig, they say because there's a chemical change that happens, it is now permissible to consume that. And someone can say, how is that possible? Right? How is that possible? They say just like if you take alcohol and you turn it to vinegar, it is permissible to consume the vinegar. Same reasoning. So these are the three major opinions concerning how to deal with the gelatin. Some people have more of a need to consume it, right? So someone might say, all right, I can see this opinion making sense if I have to take capsules. I can see this opinion making sense if I have to take medicine, but if my kids want candy, if my kids want gummy bears, then I don't see this being applicable, and that's fine. Whatever everyone does in their home is completely up to them. I'm not here to dictate. I'm just here to help everyone navigate their own lives. We all face our own difficulties. We all face our own problems. And like I say, and I remind myself and everyone, we will all stand individually in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I need to do what I am comfortable with. The only thing I can do as an imam, as a mufti, is to give options and to help people make decisions. That's it. So, like I said, in general, these are the three opinions regarding on how to deal with gelatin. And all of them are sound. For me, I think these are all very reasonable ways of dealing with the issue. Everybody needs to make their own decision on really how to navigate this and how to deal with it. It's not easy. It is something that is definitely complicated. I just don't want to make things overly complicated for us. Along the same vein is how to deal with cheese, right? So the cheese is a very similar topic as well. The major problem with cheese is how to make the cheese from the milk, right? So you have milk that becomes, like they use rennet, which is an enzyme, to turn the milk into cheese. A lot of these ahkam, a lot of the rulings that come for the permissibility of using enzymes, even if they are sourced from pigs, right? Some of these enzymes are sourced from pigs. There are many scholars who will allow it, saying that the Sahaba used to eat the cheese of the Majus, right? So there's a little bit of an issue with this with some scholars. They say, okay, the Majus is qiyas al Ahl Kitab. They will say that the Majus we deal with them the same way we deal with Ahl Kitab. Therefore, if there is cheese that comes from Ahl Kitab, from halal sources, meaning, again, if it comes from cows, or it comes from sheep, or it comes from goats, even if they didn't do the zakat, even if they didn't slaughter, then it is permissible to consume the resultant cheese. Other scholars will argue the Majus are not Ahl Kitab. They worship two gods. And because they worship two gods, they are the same as pagans. So even eating cheese from the pagans is permissible, and this is something that is very well known in the Hanafi madhab, that they would allow the consumption of cheese even in those situations. Nowadays, most cheese only have two sources. Either it's bacterial or it's going to come from pig, right? These are the two major sources that we have for the production of this. There is some bovine, some cow sources that they use to create that cheese as well. But again, you will have a multiplicity of opinions on how to deal with all of these different things. Are any of us forced to eat gummy bears or cheese? No, nobody's forced. And some people might argue, well, okay, then we should take the more conservative opinion. No, you take the opinion that is most convincing. Allah does not want us to make those things haram, which I don't actually feel are haram. He wants us to stay away from those things which I actually believe are haram. Allah doesn't allow me to make things haram. But He has given me this, and He's given me this. In addition to two very important sources, and that is Kitabullah wa Sunnat al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He's given us all of these tools to help us navigate our lives. Allah didn't send the Sharia hatta na'ish bi qalaq, so that we always feel strangled and we always feel like there's no way out. No, that's not why the Sharia came. The Sharia came to empower us. The Sharia came to free us. The Sharia came to help us become true leaders. And we cannot become leaders until we learn how to navigate these things. وجزاكم خير والله أعلم وصلى الله على خير نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.